continue to take your seats, and I would ask Command Sergeant Major Doug Gibbons, retired, to come to the stage and give us an invocation.
Well, thank you, General Carpenter. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I invite you to join me in prayer in your faith as I pray in mine. Let us pray. God of our fathers, we reverently seek your blessing on our meetings this week. May you be with everyone present and keep them safe. We pray for our President, our Congress, and our military leaders, especially Secretary Wormuth and General George. May you grant them wisdom and understanding as they face the many challenges that are inherited in their positions. Lord God, may you be with our soldiers, both here at home and especially those deployed. May you keep them safe from harm and bring them home safely. We pray for our Army families, and may you grant them peace, patience, and comfort as they await their soldiers' return. Lord, we pray for peace in our world. We know that no one prays more for peace than a soldier and their family. And now, precious God, we thank you for this food of which we are about to partake, and pray that it may enrich our bodies, our minds, and our souls. God, this we ask in your precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Command Sergeant Major. I appreciate that. So, my name is Ray Carpenter, and I'll be your host this morning. So, by a show of hands, how many of you ran the Army 10-miler yesterday? Well, I feel sorry for you if you're as stiff and sore as I am, let me tell you. On behalf of the AUSA leadership, I want to welcome you to the Major General Robert Moorhead Guard and Reserve Breakfast. General Moorhead was a past president of AUSA and a National Guardsman who hailed from Indiana. 50 years ago, incidentally, he became the 38th Division Commander. He served the National Guard as a reserve component soldier, and he dedicated his life to this country and earned the honor of the moniker for this breakfast here this morning. The purpose of the annual breakfast is to celebrate the achievements of the people and units of the Army Reserve and the Army National Guard. This year we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the all-volunteer force. If you do a little research, you'll find that it got off to somewhat of a rocky start. For example, one of the early mottos was, "The Army wants to join you." Needless to say, that didn't go far and wasn't very successful. Then came onto the scene a general officer named General Mad Max Thurman, and the moniker his team developed, which was "Be All You Can Be." That motto and the related program lasted a generation from 1981 to 2001 and was extremely successful, but eventually was retired. Now in 2023, the United States Army has brought the motto out of retirement and reinstated it as the Army's recruiting logo. And today, the Association of the United States Army for this annual meeting has adopted "Be All You Can Be" for this year's byline. I'd like to introduce our special guests. Now understand, I've figured out the best you can do in this is break even. Because I am sure that there's somebody here that I'm not going to recognize this first round, so we'll do her right after we have our breakfast complete. First of all, General Daniel Hokanson, Chief of the National Guard Bureau. General Andrew Pappas, our Speaker, whom I'll introduce a little bit later today. And apparently a general officer that was not introduced last year, although he was here, General James D. Thurman, U.S. Army retired, now with Bell. He is the former commander of the United Nations Command, Republic of Korea, U.S. Combined Forces Command, and United States Forces Korea, and former commander of the United States Army Forces Command, and a great supporter of the Guard and Reserve. And incidentally, I found out we're short-tail relation. See, a number of years ago, he started calling me Uncle Ray, and so I had no choice. I had to adopt him as my nephew. Lieutenant General John A. Jensen, Director of the Army National Guard, and Command Sergeant Major John Raines, and Chief Warrant Officer 5, Brian Searcy, Command Chief Warrant Officer. Lieutenant General Jody J. Daniels, Chief of the Army Reserve, and Command Sergeant Major Andrew Lombardo, Command Sergeant Major of the Army Reserve. Lieutenant General Leslie Smith, U.S. Army retired, Vice President, Leadership and Education, Association of the United States Army. Brigadier General Jack Haley, U.S. Army retired, Vice President, Membership and Meetings of AUSA and Annual Meeting Chair, and a very, very busy guy. So I've worked with Jack and with Mark Wolf here, and the garden reception last year was a little bit smaller than what we wanted, and we've got a larger room this year, and it happens at 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, so I invite you to be there if your schedule allows. Lieutenant General Xavier Brunson, I Corps Commander. Lieutenant General A.C. Roper, North American Aerospace Defense Command and U.S. Northern Command. Lieutenant General Tom James, U.S. Army retired, Connected Leadership, LLC. Lieutenant General Guy Swan, U.S. Army retired, AUSA Senior Fellow. And one of my mentors, Lieutenant General Roger Schultz, U.S. Army retired, RC Solutions. So on behalf of General Brown and the AUSA leadership, let me thank our national partner sponsor for their support of today's forum. Our sponsor is Light Fighter Systems. Light Fighter is a family-owned, VA-certified, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, and all three owners are Army combat vets, Vietnam and Iraq. Light Fighter is the leading provider of lightweight, backpackable shelter systems. Light Fighter asks that you stop by their booths 8441 and 8447 this week to see their new stealth thermal management shelter technologies. All Light Fighter products are made in America. And Light Fighter is represented here this morning by the company's CEO, Mike Cochise, as well as their president, Colonel Rich Cochise, retired, and his wife, Kay. Please stand and let's give them a round of applause. So that's how you screw things up. I meant for the Cochises to stand, not you. Also, we're honored to have in attendance this morning a room full of special guests and senior members of the Army leadership. We would like to highlight the recipients of the 2023 McLean and Rudder medals. The McLean medal goes to Major General Patrick Hamilton, former 36th Division Commander, and he's not here this morning, and the Rudder Medal goes to Colonel Dr. L. Gordon Sumner, Jr., U.S. Army retired. Would Gordon Sumner and all of the previous recipients of the Rudder and McLean medals please stand to be recognized. Would all of the Army Reserve Division commanders and general officers stand to be recognized. Army Reserve General Officers, please stand to be recognized. And with the National Guard Adjutant Generals, and I know we got a number of them here this morning, Division Commanders and other National Guard General Officers, please stand to be recognized. We have several AUSA board members and region presidents and senior fellows present with us this morning. Would you stand to be recognized? I would like for the following outstanding soldiers to stand to be recognized as they are introduced. The FORSCOM Best Squad winners from the Georgia Army National Guard, please stand. The Army National Guard Best Squad, hailing from the great state of Idaho, please stand. The Army Reserve Best Squad from the 416th Theater Engineer Command, please stand to be recognized. Sergeant First Class Anthony C. Bukowski, Army Reserve Career Council of the Year, please stand. Sergeant First Class Matthew D. Johnson, Reserve Component Counselor of the Year. This is a competition between the Army National Guard and the Army Reserve for the award. Sergeant First Class Dylan Olison, Army Reserve Recruiter of the Year. Please stand. Master Sergeant Christopher Sahi, Army National Guard Recruiter of the Year. Staff Sergeant Cody N. Ramberger, Army Reserve Drill Sergeant of the Year. Our AUSA staff who work with the Reserve Component Priorities and Actions, Lieutenant Colonel Retired Mark Wolf, the Deputy Director for Army National Guard and Army Reserve Affairs, and assisting him, a familiar face, the former Assistant Director for National Guard Affairs, Colonel Retired Stan Crow. And since this is a Guard and Reserve breakfast, could I have all of the current and past members of the Army Reserve please stand to be recognized? All of the current and former Army Reservists, please stand. And now could I have all of the current and past members of the Army National Guard please stand to be recognized? And last, but certainly the most important, could I have the spouses and family members of service members please stand to be recognized? So if there's anybody here that hasn't stood to be recognized, thank you very much for your time. Please enjoy your breakfast. I'll resume shortly. So continue to enjoy your breakfast. I'd like to ask Colonel Retired Stan Crow to come up and present the program.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be with the Army family and be with the Army Reserve, Army National Guard, and regular Army. What a distinct honor and pleasure it is for me to go into this portion of our agenda today with the Kerwin Awards. When the U.S. Army Forces Command was established in 1973, it was charged with the readiness of all Army units in the United States. The first commander of that organization, General Walter T. Kerwin, Jr., dedicated himself to the task of preparing all Army unit elements. In recognition of his great contribution to the reserve components, the three associations represented here, AUSA, the National Guard Association in the United States, and the Reserve Officers Association, jointly established the Walter T. Kerwin Jr. Readiness Award to recognize annually outstanding Army National Guard and Army Reserve units. And those awards are right over here on that table. They're very beautiful. The selection process is difficult. The Chief of the National Guard Bureau selects the Army National Guard unit, and the Commanding General, United States Army Reserve Command, selects the Army Reserve unit. It is presented to the unit with the highest level of readiness in its respective component. To be considered, each unit must have been rated as having superior performance in 8 specific areas, as well as meeting other criteria. Would General Pappas and Major General Carpenter please join me on the stage now? Would Lieutenant Colonel Jason Parkton and Command Sergeant Major Anthony Hughes come up to the stage to accept the award for the 1st Battalion, 149th Infantry? The citation reads, the Walter T. Kerwin Jr. Readiness Award for the Outstanding Army National Guard Unit is the 1st Battalion, 149th Infantry Regiment of the Kentucky Army National Guard. The 1st Battalion, 149th Infantry distinguished itself by achieving the highest standards in training and readiness, as well as demonstrated excellence in operational planning, execution of training, and maintaining high readiness standards. The 1st Battalion, 149th Infantry's overall combat readiness and the unit's performance with respect to all other Army National Guard units in personnel strength, weapons qualification, unit manning, skill level qualification, retention, drill attendance, operational readiness inspections, and supply operations were second to none. Finally, the battalion supported 2 different operations during the training year. Their Charlie Company supported their communities during the COVID pandemic, emergency responses within their state, and then prepared for and deployed to Kosovo in support of peacekeeping operations along the administrative boundary line between Kosovo and Serbia. Their Bravo Company also provided support to their communities during COVID, provided additional response to emergencies in their state, while simultaneously preparing for and then deploying to Camp Limaner, Djibouti, supporting the mission of the Combined Joint Task Force Horn of Africa. Their service reflects great credit upon themselves, the 75th Troop Command, the Kentucky Army National Guard, and the United States Army. Would Colonel Edward Vince and Command Sergeant Major Joshua Bacon come up to the stage to accept the award for the 2nd Brigade, 78th Training Division? The citation reads, the Walter T. Kerwin Jr. Readiness Award for the Army's most outstanding reserve unit is presented to the 2nd Brigade, 78th Training Division, Newport, Rhode Island of the U.S. Army Reserve. The 2nd Brigade, 78th Training Division has supported the Joint Chiefs of Staff, U.S. Northern Command, and U.S. Indo-Pacific Command by providing tough, realistic training to over 8,000 service members assigned to Seaborne Response Enterprise, CRE, and Defense Seaborne Response Force units during Guardian Response 2022 and 2023. 2nd Brigade 78th Training Division continues to put the mission first while ensuring recruiting and retention is achieved for the U.S. Army and that all are treated with dignity and respect. This unit's performance reflects great credit upon themselves, the 84th Training Command, the United States Army Reserves, and the United States Army.
So let's give those two units another round of applause for their achievement and excellence. At this time, I'd like to have Lieutenant General John A. Jensen, Director of the Army National Guard, to come to the podium and provide a few comments about the National Guard, Army National Guard.
Hey, good morning, everybody. General Hokanson, General Pappas, gentlemen, thanks for joining us this morning. I know Jody and I are both thrilled to have you here. So I talked to Ray Carpenter a little bit about this morning. It's not a private matter, so I'd just like to recognize this will be Ray's last AUSA as a member of the AUSA team and hosting this event. So, you know, Ray, I know you weren't with us last year. I couldn't remember if it because there was an early snowstorm in South Dakota or if you were on vacation. I couldn't remember which. But thanks so much for all of your support of our United States Army, of our Army Reserve, and of course your beloved Army National Guard here through your lifelong service as an Army soldier. So everyone, let's please thank Ray for his service. You know, Ray always likes to say he's a great actor because he was the acting director of the Army Guard for like 2 years. I remember that day when I crossed the threshold when I'd been the director longer than Ray had been the acting director, and it took quite a while. Let me tell you. To Mike Cochise, Mike, to you and your whole family, thanks for the continued support of all of our soldiers through light fighter systems. Let's see, Kay, where's Kay and Rich? Okay, right over here. So Kay and Rich have been good friends for several years. They hired my former Command Sergeant Major John Sampa to be part of the team when John retired a couple years ago, and that was so Rich could step away from the business a little bit. This year, I found out that CSM retired Todd Sims, who I got to know through First Army, and then of course at ForceCom, has now joined the light fighter team. I thought, Mike, that was to maybe so you could step away a little bit, but I heard no, that's okay, can finally step away. So I'm like, maybe next year. We'll see if we've got somebody for you there. But for all the general officers and senior leaders of the United States Army, both currently serving and retired, and all of our great industry partners that have joined us here at AUSA. Thanks so much for coming and joining us on really the first event of AUSA where we really get to kick our conference off. And I'm sure Jody is going to mention this during her comments, but just in case she hasn't, although I've now cued her a little bit, we have some special guests that have joined us, not just for this event, but for the week. And they represent the Army Reserve of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. And along with Jody and I and their leadership, we make up the combined Army Reserve Forum membership. And Jody's hosting the team this year right here at AUSA. I think I saw a couple of the members of that forum. If you could please stand so we could recognize you and thank you for the great partners and allies that you are as well. General Pappas, as I mentioned, we really look forward to your comments this morning. I've been the director for over 3 years, and I tell you, one of the greatest relationships that I've been able to experience is first with General Garrett when he was the commander in front of you, and now your time as the FORSCOM commander, and then also the great First Army team. Started with Tom James, who's with us here today, Tony Agudo, who's forward in Europe, just doing wonderful things there, and then current Commander Mark Landis. Mark, I don't know if you've joined us here this morning or not, but I'm just so appreciative of this whole team. Getting after Army readiness with an eye certainly to large-scale combat operations and what that means to the Army and the changes that we have to make across DOT-MIL, but also understanding that every day we have soldiers currently deployed. For the Army Guard this morning, we woke up to 34,012 soldiers that are on duty either in support of the national security strategy or in direct support of their governor. And we're keeping a very, very close eye out in Guam right now. The president, I think yesterday or this morning, just signed a federal emergency declaration for a tropical storm out in Guam. And so, while we're focused on what our nation might ask us to do, especially with an eye to the events of late last week and over the weekend, but also an understanding that we have service members deployed across the globe right now and families that are at home supporting their service members, so we can't forget them. To the two units that were recognized today from Kentucky and from the Army Reserve, congratulations, well done. Really, just a shining example of excellence and the quality that we have in our reserve component. Hey, look, I'm just going to give you a quick advertisement for what's going on later today and tomorrow as it relates to the reserve component. Today at 1500, Command Sergeant Major Raines, my CSM Lombardo, will be hosting the CSM panel. 1500 today in room 150, Alpha and Bravo. So if you're not aware of that, please go in and support that. Later tonight, I know with many of the adjutants general that are here, we're going to go join the international military reception, in part to link up with our great state partners that are represented here. That begins at 1700. Tomorrow morning, 0800, the Army Guard seminar. And really, the title of the seminar is Generational Readiness, the Next Greatest Generation is Now. Certainly with a lot of focus on General George, the new CSA, his 4 focus areas for the Army. So Major General Dale Lyles, TAG of Indiana, Major General Lapte Flora, Special Assistant to the Chief of the National Guard, Bureau for International Affairs, Major General Rick Johnson, our DCG at FORSCOM, and Major General John Epperly, our DCG at Army Futures Command, will be leading that seminar tomorrow starting at 08, and then Jody and her team come in right behind that at 10:30. And then, as mentioned, the always highly anticipated reserve component National Guard reception tomorrow night. It starts at 17:30. So we'd love to see all of you at all those events, listening and learning a little bit more about our great reserve component. I always say, You know, the United States Army has a lot of asymmetrical advantages over our enemies. The number one in my mind is the quality of the reserve component that we have, the United States Army, both our Army National Guard, which I represent, and our Army Reserve that Jody represents, unmatched in professionalism, in skill, in lethality, and experience. You know, the thought that, you know, from the Army, you know, just looking at this from an Army Guard perspective, that we routinely deploy armored brigade combat teams. We routinely deploy infantry brigade combat teams. We routinely deploy aviation brigades, division headquarters, you know, all kinds of formations. It's really a great testament to the whole Army team and how we're all pulling together, we're all working together to ensure, again, that our United States Army can meet the needs of our nations. So have a great conference, everybody. Thanks for joining this morning.
So could I ask Lieutenant General Jody Daniels to please come forward and present the Army Reserve priorities?
So the good news is I don't have to repeat all of those great intros that John just did. So that'll make this a whole lot shorter. So greetings, everyone. I'll just sort of cut to everyone's here. Everyone's been recognized, I think. So that's awesome. It's great to see everybody out here bright and early on this Monday holiday morning. But I do want to thank Light Fighter. Thank you so much for sponsoring this breakfast. You all have some really cool kit. I was walking around through it last year. I can't wait to see what's out there this year. And AUSA, thank you for sponsoring this event to bring us all together. So I do want to make just a couple of quick remarks, and then I'll get off the stage. John mentioned, you know, how great we're all doing out there. We're all busy getting after a lot of things, working with our foreign partners and allies, trying to get exercises together, make sure that we've got all that interoperability taking place. And that is really hard work. You'd think it'd be easy to talk to each other, even when we have the same language. It's sometimes challenging, but we try and make that all happen, and we really get after all of the training, so we really are focusing on readiness, so that we are ready for whatever comes at us. And the fact is that we're doing exercises all across the globe so that we are practicing how do we work together, because we don't want to go alone. And so this is a great event to bring, again, everybody together to talk about how can we do this better, how do we continue to perfect our skills and go on with even more and more proficiency. We do look at how do we re-image capabilities, how do we look towards the future, how do we fine-tune what we already have. And it takes all three components together to do all of that because we all have different aspects and skills that we bring to this fight. Most of you know that the Army Reserve does not have those combat brigades. We've got all the enablers. So all those support functions that help the combat teams go forward, have that lethality, we help provide and support those folks. The civil affairs, the cybers, the psychological ops, we can mess with your minds as we go forward, all that good stuff. And then the medical, so we can treat you after we've messed with you, we can treat you. That's always good. And I have been focusing really hard the last year and getting everyone out there to really think about tough, realistic training done safely. We kind of had a bit of a COVID fog, kind of got a little lackadaisical in some of our training, got focused on metrics, really easy to do. I can count things. Great. Go do training. Stand up, move out, go pull your equipment, check it out, use it. And I say break it in. I don't say break it. In is that key extra little phrase, the 2 letters, very important. And then maintain it. And so really having our soldiers get after that. And we're seeing a great impact on retention. We've got all-time high in retention because soldiers are doing what they joined the service to do. And then I'm saying, okay, now go talk about what it is you're doing. What kind of opportunity has service offered you? What did it bring to your life that you would not have had you not served? And go tell other people what that is, what made a difference in your life. So tell those stories, inspire others to become a member of the force. And I think that's helping as well. We're also seeing, thank you to the active component for talking about Reserve National Guard service. We're seeing an all-time high in terms of folks that are transitioning over to the reserve components, which is great for us because we don't have to train them. They already come ready trained. So we are super grateful for all those folks that come and join us after they've done a stint on the active component. And please keep talking that for us. It's really important. And you notice I said transition to the Army Reserve, transition to the Guard, transition off into civilian life. I give people who say getting out, you're not getting out. Not if we believe that we are soldiers for life. Because how many ex-Marines do you know? Not a one, okay? So why do we talk about getting out? We should talk about transitioning. So I sort of continue to remind people that's if we really believe that we are soldiers for life, and there's a lot of folks here who have put in a lot of years, dedicated their lives to service and supporting service, we are soldiers for life. So one last thing I want to talk about real quick is I have a big initiative this year. I'm putting on a gauntlet down. I'm going up against the Guard. You guys promote people faster than we do, from specialist to sergeant. The Army Reserve's gotten a little slow in promoting that young talent. And I want to have an E5 in 5. You can make sergeant in 3 years, but we're averaging over 6.5. Why? Because we hold them to the wrong standard. We've been holding our soldiers to the, are they ready? That's not the standard. The standard is, do they have potential? Promote potential. So I'm trying to move my lever to the left, depending on which direction you're looking at. So faster. Whatever left is for you, faster. I want them faster. Because we're taking way too much time to reward that talent and show that they've got potential for the next grade. I need my specialists no later than 5 years to be promoted. So that's what that's the one metric that I am actually measuring everyone on this year is how quickly are you taking care of your soldiers to make them become sergeants. And I think that'll have a retention and a recruiting effect for all of us as well. So please get after that. For those of you who are sponsors out here, thank you for supporting us in all that we do. One quick note, John mentioned about the 34,000 plus soldiers that he's got out around the globe. Army Reserve is the same way. We've got, in grand total on orders doing something or other, we've probably got about 20,000 that are actively out on a COADOS mission. We've got about 8,500. So we are still actively employed around the globe doing all kinds of unique and interesting missions. And they're all proud to serve. They're all doing their what they've been trained to do, and they love doing those missions. We continue to work on our readiness, continue to get them out there. So John did some of the public service announcements of all the events coming up, mentioned the various panels taking place today, tomorrow. I'm not going to repeat all of those. So that's all I've got. We continue to press on readiness. Thanks to the support of all of you out there for all that you are doing. Spouses, family members are especially important. Our industry partners, because someone else pays our full-time salary. It's not really the Army most days. So it's really important that our employers are supportive of us and that we have good communications with them. Thank you for supporting us. Please take more of your employees and convert them into guardsmen and reservists, because you know what quality you get when you have them in your formations, in your employment environments. So thank you for this breakfast. Hope you all have a great conference.
It's now my privilege to welcome the Commanding General of the United States Army Forces Command, General Andrew Pappas, for his second consecutive year speaking at our Moorhead Guard and Reserve Breakfast. A Wisconsin native and a 1988 West Point graduate, General Pappas spent most of his career between the 82nd and the 101st. He also served several tours up here in the Pentagon, and I'm sure that was pretty special. Including 3 years as a J3 and Director of the Joint Staff. Now in his second year as FORSCOM Commander, he has been a valuable leader and a partner in developing readiness across all three components, the total force, with a direct and distinct focus on warfighting and lethality. General Pappas.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'll say this youthful appearance you see before you today, it's a reflection of actually leaving the Pentagon. So that's been beneficial. But for General Carpenter, thank you. And I also want to thank you for the incredible service that you provided for us at AUSA going throughout. And for General Thurman, I too have told him now I want to call him Uncle Ray, because I've also seen what he gives for Christmas gifts, and I want to get on that list too. That's great. For my co-chiefs, thank you very much for setting this up. You sponsor this breakfast. It's a way to bring everybody together and kick off the weekend and the whole week's events. So thank you for doing that. And also, if you ever want to build resilience that we look at in the military, it starts in youth. Have an older brother. So for Bill, where's Bill in the crowd? Bill's not. See, Bill doesn't want to be in the same room. But as a Bill, the CEO and the CEO, that's 7 years difference, and I laugh because I love my brother, but he's 3 years older than I am. And my biggest disappointment in life is when I finally got big enough to take my brother, because I never won a single battle with him. We were friends. But I couldn't imagine at this point in my life sharing an office space with him, because it would be going back at it. But thank you again for having this set up, and it's a great environment. And for all the leaders that are out here, thanks for coming in and being a part of this. And that's the leaders still in uniform, out of uniform, mentors that are in the crowd, and those that continue to carry this formation forward. Thank you. And we're reflected for you talk about the total force. You know, our chief, Shane Buzzer right there, who did get up and run the 10-miler this weekend. Well done, my friend. Though it's nothing for him, that's just a daily run, as these are big cross, what is it, for the triathlons. And I see him every morning, because we live just a couple of doors down from each other. In the morning I'll sit there drinking my coffee, and I see him running by. It frustrates me. I throw stuff at him, but he's too fast. And Rich Johnson, you know, Troy retired last year, and we brought Rich Johnson in from Massachusetts. So we've got a lot of time, a couple years in Afghanistan together, so bringing Rich onto the team has been a great benefit. And if you've been in the field this summer, you've seen Rich, because he's spent less time in the building, more time out in the field, getting a great assessment of where we're at and our readiness. And for John and Jody, thanks for your opening comments. I'll tell you, I come into this year, a little bit better rested, because last year I had to host the gathering of the Eagles at my house. And though you put a cutoff time on that and any invite, I don't know why we waste the ink on that, because late into the night I realized, my God, that's going to come early tomorrow morning. But J.P. McGee took that on, but it's great to see a lot of people out there, to include Command Sergeant Major Sims, who's recently left the Sergeant Major Force Command, was Sergeant Major as we were a command team in the 101st. And now you've brought him in the light fighter. So when any of those friction points arise, I can assure you, Sergeant Major Sims is the man who can calm all the different currents. But it's great to see so many friends and partners out here today. A lot of fellow four-stars that are here. We've got CASAs. We have reserve ambassadors. Many of the tags, and what I appreciate with the tags, we have our huddles. We align them by the FEMA region, and I learned a lot from each one of those engagements, and I appreciate it. I look forward to the future ones that we're going to have. And for the commanders in USAREC, I look forward to seeing you at the end of this month as you get together for your convention. But it's in all these type of engagements that I make sure I always talk about the same four things. There's a redundancy when you have a dogma and a mantra that's out there, because they're all built around our core purpose and our values, and that's war fighting and winning. That's who we are, that's what we do, that's what the nation depends on us when the call comes. And the key to that, those four wins, I introduced them last year at the breakfast. I just had my first 90 days in. Command Sergeant Major and I did an assessment. We started to look around the formation. We said, what matters? Winning matters. And they're built, and they're even more relevant today when you see the environment that we're operating in. The first, win, trust, and empower our leaders. We have to build that foundation, because we're never going to be successful without it. We have to win the first fight. We have to prepare if we go to battle today, especially in this uncertain world. And you see the world events that Uncle Ray brought up a little bit earlier. You have to be prepared for that today, tonight, and tomorrow. We don't have a latitude to build for a future fight. We have to be ready today. We also have to be prepared for the future fight. And that future fight is part of the modernization, bring that new equipment into the formation, across all compos, training on it so that we can apply it to the enemy in the temporal nature of the fight that we're facing. And last, one that I know is close to you, we have to win as a balanced total army. If anything, the world events that we have seen have shown us No one compo can do it alone. We are truly interdependent, and the time horizons in which we have to be interdependent for execution continue to get closer. We have to work together, train together, modernize together, because that win the first fight is one that we're going to have to do together, and you can see it on the horizon. War fighting is the reason that the Army exists. Now, I really am incredibly proud of the work that we've done and the work many of you right here in the room are doing in your formations. You're building ready, winning, warfighting formations in your organization today for that uncertain future. Now, but the demand on our forces remain extremely high. You know, Patrick Matlock's here from the 3, which I wonder who's running the Army if you're here, Patrick. But the demand's there. Why? Because we put a lot of demands on our combatant commanders. The orders. We need you to execute this worldwide. And they've come back and said, all right, Mr. Secretary, if you want me to do this, here's the requirements that I have. And it far eclipses the capacity we have as a total Army, as a total Department of Defense. So that's where you mitigate risk. But the demand keeps going up because it's an uncertain future and the pressure's upon us. And as we've seen with the RC especially, we can't do it alone. We have to get the authorities to bring it in. And I'll tell you, several states, just look around the world today. We got a number of states that are in CENTCOM as we speak. California, Mississippi. We have Texas is in Egypt and Kosovo, simultaneous executing the missions we placed upon them. Oklahoma and South Carolina are in Africa. And we just saw Arkansas is running the JMTGU for the Ukraine. You know, we were in Ukraine before, we moved a little bit outside the country, but it still goes on as we're preparing the Ukrainian formations for the current fight that they're in. It is an imperative mission, and Arkansas is running that. And the Army Reserve experts and enablers are forward deployed around the world. What we saw when the Russians invaded Ukraine and the initial demand went out, first for Title X, and we initially didn't have the authorities, we found combat formations going forward, and then the combat support and service support were not there in the depth we had in Title X because we didn't have the authority to mobilize our Guard and Reserve. That's not acceptable. And the time horizons for that. We've got to fight, train, and win as a total force. But it truly showed the interdependence that we have. You know, and it's also been in tough and realistic training here at home. We just spoke in New Jersey and Hawaii. They pushed into the box at JRTC. Now this is actually historic because for the 44th, it was the first ever rotation at JRTC. The first ever. And I'll tell you, it's imperative. John talked about that generational training, those rotations for both. They're elevating the individuals, they're elevating the formation to that metal mission essential task list, that which we tell you you've got to do to a level of mastery. And we're continuing to work to put our reserve and our guard formations with Title X training together in that formation. That crucible of the training rotation is the one that builds that confidence when you're in combat. You know, and building forward on that general readiness, we have many more of units. We're busy throughout the entire summer. Summer that I will admit was the hottest on record. So doing it under duress. You know, we had the CTCs, Rich, CONUS and OCONUS exercises that came up. The Army Reserves and the Combat Support Exercise, 6,000 soldiers are in beautiful Wisconsin. And Brother Knapp, thank you for the cheese curds. I am bribable. The beauty of Wisconsin, the weather is always perfect there. But 6,000 out there as we continue to work on our mobilization exercises and seeing the depth of capacity and requirements. But it's been essential to your communities and your neighbors. The response we had to Hurricane Idalia included 6,500 Florida Guardsmen alone, 6,500. And we saw the true total Army. It was a multi-compo response to the Maui wildfires that took place this past summer. Now, I know your teams are always ready, so I made you make sure that's the case for whatever Mother Nature throws at us. And we're seeing that on the horizon as we're running into both the fire season, the winter coming forward, and hurricane season. But I want to highlight some of the things that units are up to, but I also want to once more recognize the most ready formations. And for Kentucky, 1st of the 149th, give them a hand again. It's an incredible formation to rise to the top. And the 2nd of the 78th in Newport, you know I'm coming to visit there. But what a great place. And a way to elevate the formation itself to the top. That is excellence, and that's leadership. Well done to you and your formations. Thank you. Now, we've got an incredible amount of formations that are out there that have built this culture of readiness. And, I want to congratulate our drill sergeant of the year, our recruiter of the year, our counselors of the year. That is never an easy job, especially in the environment we're in today. And we've got the Guard and Reserve best squads. Now, that's some of our nation's top warfighters, fresh off the Army's best squad competition. And I have to single out the ForceCom best squad. So, Army, you spent the whole week there with them. I caught them at the end. Now, it's Idaho's 116th Cav Brigade. And they recently returned from its own CENTCOM formation. So they're training during the deployment. And this is a homogeneous squad, not a super squad, put together of super athletes. And they won the competition. Cohesive team, trained together, fought together, and won the best squad. And Command Sergeant and I were out at Fort Campbell, and we got an opportunity to meet them. And the one thing I'll tell you, impressive. What an impressive group. And the leadership that I saw and the camaraderie in that formation, it stands out. That is the example for all, why they're the best squad, that you put on a pedestal and you want to emulate. Those are the individuals you want to put out in the schools that we look at recruiting, because that's who you want to be. That's who I want to be. Shoot, they all had great hair, and they're all physically fit. They're in there. It was impressive to watch. Now, one of the best parts about the job is hearing also the stories about the soldiers, the commitment, the tenacity that they show, and their successes. So I ask, after this week, when you return back home, pass on my thanks, my personal thanks, along to all of your teams, because it's along with the discussions that you're going to be a part of this week. Those are the stories that we have to carry forward, especially with the Secretary and our new Chief and their focus on war fighting. We've got to carry that message. It's got to resonate back to the people back home and within your formations. And of course, more in the annual meetings theme for this year, be all you can be. It resonates. We grew up with it. I love it. We're bringing it back, and we got to drive that home. For me this week, I have the unique privilege with this breakfast. I'm going to be one of the first speakers and the last speakers, because we've got the opening up today. Then obviously at the end of the week, we're going to have our panel forum led by Forces Committee. We're going to be talking about the reality of war, and I expect to see everybody there. Everybody. The last forum of the day. But it's important because it's also the #1 focus area for our Chief and our Secretary, war fighting. And we're going to build to that through the week. And we're going to talk about it. And we're going to talk about the reality of war. We're going to talk about how our total Army formations, our allies, are forging strong teams for that future fight. I'm going to give you a little bit of preview now, because one of our core realities we all know to expect in LSCO is we absolutely need our Guard, we absolutely need our reserve formations. People say, do you really need them? I said, well, only if you want to win. And we're going to win, because we've got to have that formation. That's going to be one of the core tenets that we have out there. And then we walk forward with how we're going about doing that and integrating the formations. And as an Army and a joint force, we cannot win without all of your soldiers, which are our soldiers, in our total package. Now, they provide an edge that we in the competition and conflict, and we're going to hold on to that edge in the years to come by putting even more intellectual rigor towards understanding when and how we're going to operate when that next fight comes. We have got to look at the future fight, not what we've done in the past. 20 years of continuous conflict, it's built a lot of resilience and combat experience, but now we have to adjust as our own doctrine adjusts. Now, there's already a lot of hard work that's happening in order to do this as we apply the new doctrine, incorporating new technologies in our formation. So by exploring the reality of war, we're considering the reality of how our units are going to fight in large-scale combat operations. It has literally been decades since we've had this discussion. And not just how we maneuver, but how we synchronize protection capabilities, sustainment, our fires. We need to be predictive on the future battlefield to take advantage of those opportunities as they arise, so we can maintain tempo, that we can exploit through convergence of our capabilities. We haven't had to do that in the scale we're going to need to in the future. We've got to train to that. And since how we fight includes who we fight alongside, our relationships abroad remain vital. That's why it's great to see with New Zealand and Australia and Canada there. And next year's breakfast is actually in Sydney, and I appreciate that. I'll be there. But your forces play an integral part in all that. And I'm just going to highlight the state partnership program. And you talk about it, it's a 30-year anniversary, one of the most impactful programs that's been brought forward. And the relationships that are developed through that are the foundation of every endeavor we do. I look no further than poor John, whether it's in Minnesota or the California Guard with General Baldwin when the Ukraine broke out. The partnership that you had with the Ukraine, he was our point of contact for initial information. And just as the chairman would call John during the Minneapolis issue, poor General Baldwin got multiple calls from General Milley because he had the relationship. And we're trying to build our knowledge of what's taking place. Informal channels are often a little bit too slow. So that cell phone was buzzing. And that's just one example, because we use that worldwide. And we think it's such a great relationship that we're actually starting to nest with that. And we've taken our SFABs, our advisory battalions and brigades, to follow the path and use those relationships to build our own and complement those in the countries. And we're also, as we look to expand, looking at the requirements and the timelines we're going to face in LISCO. Again, great lesson out of the Ukraine. Without the authorities and predictive nature, the total force wasn't ready. So there's going to be many necessary capabilities that reside in your organizations today throughout all three compounds. And as the Army shifts focus to the division and division-level enablers as a tactical formation, now is the time for us to ask ourselves, who does what, when do they have to do it, and we have to take a very transparent, multi-compo look at the nation's warfighting needs. That is a mature discussion that's on the horizon, because we have got to adjust to the fight that we're going to have in the future. And the timelines have collapsed. How we deploy and fight is going to drive how we train as a total Army. Now we're doing more to team guard and reserve formations up with our active headquarters, who can deliver the same type of training relationships that our active duty components already benefit from, especially between the brigades up to the division and then the guard divisions up with our corps. As we've seen, the core capability to train divisions is here. We've got ex-Brunson from our first corps who's nesting with out there. And all of our briefs, we have our readiness briefs, it's not just the active duty, but everybody that's in the purview of ex-Brunson in the first corps has to brief their training plan, how they're nested, how we're building capacity internal and together. And we're also looking at a hard look at the realistic look at our home game. We're looking at large-scale mobilization. We're doing rock drills to test our ability to activate, transport, train, and then deploy a substantial number of your formations throughout our MFGIs. I know what it is. I forget what MFGI stands for. But that's where you go through before you deploy out. But we just did an EDRI to push and focus additional capacity through there to find out what gaps that we have. It's great if you know where you're going and you have the right capacity. But when you start surging thousands of extra people through there, and it's going to be even more than that when combat breaks out, we've got to find the gaps, the faults, and the friction points and refine them today. And we're finding that they do exist because we've had an atrophy since the high point of our early deployments at the beginning of the war, let alone take us back to the Desert Storm days. Now, these lessons can't be through discovery learning at the point of execution when we have to actively deploy to a combat situation. And we can't ignore the reality of today's recruiting environment. You can see it. We are overstructured as an Army, and it's impacting our ability to train and get the readiness necessary. Now we're relying on our recruiters. We had our recruiters of the year up here, and our councils of the year, and their teammates to be successful. But challenge of manning our formations is not theirs alone. I will tell you, it's an Army-wide challenge. It's an Army-wide priority, which makes it our responsibility to meet those requirements, to fill our formations, to be that interlocutor, to be that ambassador to bring everybody through. We've talked about what the role of the CASAs are and how the Secretary of the Army has been empowering our CASAs to get to the local level. We have partners within FORSCOM supporting the recruiting. It has become our leader responsibility, from the team leader all the way up to the FORSCOM commander. And I expect the commanders, that's all of you, to help share our Army culture, our Army values, and the opportunities with all future soldiers you come in contact with. Now, I know many of your teammates, now with one foot in the civilian communities and in the career fields, you are actually our best personnel, our best ambassadors, that are postured to help spread that word. Now, this summer we took a step in the right direction. You know, you might have saw it. I got to swear in one new Army Reserve soldier who may officially have the coolest civilian job on the books. That was country music star Craig Morgan. And over a cold beer, I'll tell you the story how that came up. Maybe a couple beers. But I think Jody wanted to get him on stage for this morning's keynote address, but you got stuck with me instead. And even though I offered to sing, she begged me not to, so I will not. As my neighbor, she's heard that a couple times, especially when the shower window's open, and she continues, stop, please. But as I look across all these elements for the reality of war that we're going to be looking at, the undisputed bottom line is that we know the Guard and the Reserve soldiers are going to be committed. We know that they're well trained, they're lethal, and that you're ready when called upon. And if I've learned anything from the past year plus of what's happening first in the Ukraine, just this past week, as John touched about, in Israel, taken by surprise with the depth of the intel apparatus and the horrific things that are taking place there. And we know that in Indo-PACOM is facing this truth as well, is we cannot wait, and when the next crisis comes, our Army will not have the luxury of time to build our lethal force, to build that war-fighting culture, to build resiliency. We've got to be prepared today. We have got to build that warrior ethos in each and every individual that we come in contact with. That resiliency has got to be built today. And that's a leader responsibility, a leader through engagement, a leader through the structure, a leader through the training, to build that in every formation that's coming. Because if and when the next fight comes, and it's coming, we can't expect it to be a by, with, and through, or a train and equip operation, but rather it's our soldiers. It's our soldiers. These best squads that were in the room, they're going to be fighting on the front lines. It's going to be us. That's the reality of the next war. And the war fighters that some of you recruiters and the drill sergeants brought into the ranks are the ones that are going to be on the front lines as the newest privates and junior leaders. And you got to keep asking yourself every night, are we leading? Are we building that warrior ethos that's going to empower the soldiers to win in combat? That's our responsibility. Is our training tough enough? Is our equipment ready? Are our standards high enough? Are we enforcing them? Are we holding ourselves accountable and that of our subordinates? Do our teams trust one another? Are we ready? That is a question that I ask every night. It's a question Sergeant Major and I would go over every day, every touch point we had, every soldier engaged, every unit visit, we'd ask that question. I know that Dan Hokinson has the same question because he owns responsibility. John Jensen and I have the discussion, and with Jody, every formation. And it's not just a simple yes, but it's rather yes, but here's more that we have to do. Here's where we're doing well and have to sustain. Here's where we have to focus. Here's the resources we need, and we have to get ready today. That's the reality of our Army today. Your formations are doing more and will continue to do more today because tomorrow it's going to be too late. Our responsibility. Embrace it. Drive it. Take responsibility for it and take pride in the success that we're going to have. I want to thank everybody again for joining us for this entire week. I'd ask you to keep asking the hard questions, every forum we have. Keep driving for more resources to get to that higher level of training. You hear the words coming out of our mouth at the leader level. Now drive us to back it up with actions, activity, and resources. And keep challenging one another and keep building the formation to be better. And most of all, thank you. Thank you for the role you play in building warfighting readiness and taking the very best care of those that we care about the most, and that's our soldiers. Thank you very much.
So, General, just so you know, I'd be proud to be your uncle. Thank you, sir, for those very important and strategic remarks, and thank you even more for your leadership. Here's a token from AUSA for your speech here today, and thank you for your service.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I would like to thank the associations for joining us this morning. We appreciate what you have done and what you do to look after our soldiers, their families, and their priorities. To each of you, we have critical issues before us to deal with. There is real power in agreeing on the critical issues before our Army. Again, thank you to our national partner sponsor for today's event, Light Fighter Systems, which is represented again by President Rich Cochise, wife Kay, and CEO Mike, and big brother Bill. I'm proud to say our membership has grown in AUSA to over 1 million members. And if you're wondering, this is the new logo that will be introduced a little later today at our opening ceremonies. I'd encourage you, if you're not already a member, and even if you are, to stop by the AUSA Pavilion. This morning we had the Washington Tattoo playing as a band before our introduction, so I'd like to thank them for their support too. Those wishing to attend the opening ceremony for the 2023 AUSA annual meeting are invited to do so. The annual meeting badges you are wearing will allow you inside the ballroom and also will allow you to tour our exhibits when they are open later today. If you do not have a badge yet, please stop at the registration at the convention center to pick them up on your way to the opening ceremony. The ceremony begins at 9:30 this morning. Thank all of you for attending the breakfast, and that concludes our program.